They never told you that reality could be edited, not just perceived, but manipulated. What if your thoughts weren't echoes, but commands? What if the life you're living right now isn't accidental, but the result of patterns you've unconsciously obeyed since the moment you took your first breath? There's a reason ancient initiates spoke in symbols and whispers. Buried beneath layers of religion, science, and cultural noise lies a system, a forbidden map of the mind and the universe, where thought, frequency, and will reshape existence itself. This isn't about philosophy or faith. It's about knowing and using laws so primal, so powerful, that most people will deny them the moment they hear them. Coming up next, you'll understand why no one talks about this, and how this secret could change everything. They told you reality is objective, that what you see is what exists. But what if everything around you were just a projection, shaped not by external forces, but by the lens of your own consciousness? New findings in quantum mechanics suggest particles behave differently when observed. What else, then, changes when your attention becomes intention? Could it be that the world is not happening to you, but through you? Imagine your thoughts as frequencies, invisible architects vibrating at the core of matter. Every belief, every doubt, every emotion sends out a signal, and the universe doesn't respond with logic, it responds with alignment. Reality begins to bend, not where the eyes see, but where the mind believes. Isn't it strange that what you expect often finds a way to happen? Philosophers hinted at this. Mystics lived it. Now, neuroscience confirms it. Your brain constantly fills gaps in perception, literally inventing details to match your mental model. In other words, you don't just interpret reality, you construct it. The subconscious acts like a blueprint machine, replicating scenarios that match the dominant energy you carry. But if your reality is built this way, what exactly is building you? You were taught to look outward for answers, to fix the world before fixing your thoughts. But what if that's the great misdirection? Ancient traditions, from Hermeticism to Eastern mysticism, whispered of a hidden law, that all is mind, not metaphorically, literally. Your mind is not reacting to reality, it's generating it. Is your suffering then a glitch or a signal? This changes everything, and yet explains so much. Why joy seems to attract more joy? Why fear spirals into chaos? It's not karma, it's not luck, it's resonance. And resonance begins inside you, long before the world reflects it back. But here's the part no one dares to tell. Your mind doesn't work alone. It follows ancient, invisible laws that few ever master. And if those laws were handed to you in secret, would you even recognize the power they hold? At the core of Hermetic wisdom lies a truth so radical, so disruptive, that it's often dismissed as metaphor. The all is mind. But what if this isn't a poetic expression? What if it's literal? If all that exists stems from one infinite mental force, then the physical universe is not foundational. It's secondary. Matter would then be the shadow. Thought, the source. Modern physics dances around this idea. Quantum fields respond to observation. Energy collapses into form only when measured. Does that not suggest a reality that waits for a mind to define it? If everything is mind, then the universe itself may be thinking. And if that's true, then your own thoughts are not isolated. They're extensions of the infinite mind at work. But how do you relate to this field? Are you a spark that's forgotten it came from fire? Mystics say you are a droplet of divine awareness, temporarily dreaming it is separate. This illusion, this dream, we call it reality. But some awaken mid-dream, and they begin to bend the dream itself. These are not saints, not gods, just aware. The first principle wasn't hidden, it was ignored. Perhaps because it makes the ego irrelevant. If everything is mind, then even the concept of control must be redefined. You're not here to dominate the world with thought, but to tune into the source of all thought. The all doesn't force, it flows. And so must you if you wish to shape reality from within. So where does your mind end and the all begin? Where's the line between your imagination and divine creation? Could it be that every time you visualize, affirm, or feel with intensity, you are echoing the original act of universal creation? Perhaps that's why certain thoughts feel electric. They are more than ideas. They are fragments of power. And still, one question hums beneath it all. If everything is mind, then who or what is dreaming you right now? Inside your skull, billions of neurons fire in silent symphonies. But what if this isn't just biology? What if your brain is a spellbook, and every repeated thought carves a magical sigil into your neural pathways? Science calls it neuroplasticity, your ability to rewire your mind through repetition. But ancient initiates knew it as something deeper, the shaping of destiny from within. You are not fixed, your fears are not final. The thoughts you entertain most often are sculptors, chiseling identity, experience, and belief into your consciousness. Each time you affirm limitation, you reinforce the prison walls. But each time you imagine freedom, joy, or power with clarity, you begin to melt the bars. Could that be why visualization can heal or destroy? We've been taught the brain is a storage device, but it's far more dynamic. It is an alchemical laboratory where focus transmutes thought into structure. The more you rehearse an idea, the more real it becomes to your body, your emotions, your future. That's not mysticism. That's neural feedback. And yet, doesn't that sound a lot like magic? Think about it. Your mind does not know the difference between memory and imagination. Feel it deeply, and your biology reacts. Chemicals change, hormones shift, the body obeys. So, what happens when you consciously begin to design what your mind rehearses? Could mastery of this mechanism be the true great work of transformation? The Hermetics hinted at this long ago, that inner mastery leads to outer manifestation. Not because the world submits to your will, but because your will changes the way you interface with the world. And when the interface shifts, so does everything else. But there's a catch, a quiet one. What hidden patterns are running in your mind that you didn't choose but still obey every day? They say everything is energy, but what they don't say is that energy obeys tone. Every word, every emotion, every belief emits a frequency, like a note played in the unseen layers of existence. And frequency, unlike thought, doesn't lie. You may speak of abundance, but if your inner vibration sings lack, the universe listens to the song, not the script. Ancient texts and modern science now walk similar lines. From string theory to cymatics, it's all vibration. Even atoms, the so-called building blocks of matter, are 99.99999% empty space, pulsing with invisible oscillations. So, if reality is rhythm, what melody is your mind composing? Could your life be nothing? More than an echo of your most consistent internal tune. Emotions are not just feelings. They're carriers. Data packets encoded with your most dominant beliefs. When you feel joy, you rise. When you feel shame, you sink. This isn't metaphor, it's physics of the soul. The higher the frequency, the more access you gain to clarity, synchronicity, and what some call miracles. But what if miracles aren't rare, just rarely aligned with? Tuning yourself isn't passive. It requires ruthless honesty and radical awareness. The food you consume, the thoughts you entertain, the people you allow near your field, all of it becomes your sound. Your vibration is your signature, and it's what the universe uses to match you with your version of reality. No one escapes this algorithm, not even the enlightened. And so the question arises, what would happen if you changed your frequency, not once, but consistently? Would doors open that were once invisible? Would people shift, vanish, or appear? Could your environment not respond to such a recalibration? Or does the universe, like a radio, simply wait for you to tune to the right channel? But then again, what if you've already been broadcasting a signal for years and had no idea what you were calling in? Beneath the surface of your waking mind lies a realm untouched by logic, yet more powerful than any conscious thought. The subconscious doesn't argue, it obeys. It is ancient, primal, and always listening. What you repeat, it engraves. What you feel, it amplifies. But few realize, this isn't just a mental storage room. It's the throne room of creation. Everything you believe to be true about yourself was accepted by the subconscious without question. Childhood words, trauma, praise, patterns, all carved grooves that now direct the flow of your reality. And the most disturbing part? You don't remember choosing them. Yet they choose what you see, how you love, what you fear, and what you allow yourself to receive. Spiritual traditions call this realm the inner temple. Psychologists call it the unconscious. But initiates have always known it by its effects. What is seeded here grows in the outer world. It is not the universe that delays your desires. It is the guardian of your mind, trained to preserve, not to question. So, what exactly have you trained it to protect? Affirmations, visualization, emotional intensity. These are not positive thinking gimmicks. They are ritual tools, keys to the vault. When used with intent, they bypass the critical mind and go straight to the source. And once something is accepted in the subconscious, it begins to rewire your perception, decisions, and ultimately, the events you attract. But this gateway is neutral. It will reinforce your doubt just as faithfully as your faith. It will create suffering if suffering is familiar, because its goal is not your happiness, but your consistency. So the question is no longer, how do I manifest what I want? The real question becomes, what patterns have I unconsciously authorized to manifest for me? And if you were to speak to your subconscious tonight, what forgotten command would you hear echoing back? The stars in the sky, the neurons in your brain. Look closer and you'll find the same architecture, a cosmic reflection repeating itself endlessly as if the universe is trying to tell you something. You are not separate from it. The ancient Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, wasn't poetry. It was a revelation, encrypted for those ready to see through the illusion of distance. Modern science has begun to catch the echo. Fractals, holograms, self-similar structures, from the microscopic to the galactic. It's no longer fantasy to say the universe is nested intelligence. You are not just in the cosmos is in you. So what does that mean for your thoughts, your desires, your suffering? Could they ripple outward like signals sent through divine circuitry? Every cell in your body holds the memory of stars. Every heartbeat mimics the pulse of the Earth's magnetic field, and every intuition, every sudden knowing, might not be random at all, but resonance. The higher mind whispers through symbols, dreams, strange synchronicities, and if the pattern is truly mirrored, then decoding those whispers could reveal more than prophecy. This law is not just about patterns, it's about permission. If the structure of the divine is reflected in you, then what divine power have you forgotten you hold? Creation is not just something you witness, it is something you echo, from thought to form, from word to world. And the more aware you become of this link, the more the boundary between self and source begins to dissolve. But this principle also carries a weight. If you truly are a reflection of the above, then what you manifest below becomes a sacred responsibility. Your inner chaos does not stay contained, nor does your inner harmony. Everything you fix in yourself ripples across the invisible web of all things. Is it possible, then, that healing, Yourself is an act of cosmic service, and still, a deeper mystery lingers. If everything reflects everything, then who or what is holding the original image? Light and darkness, pleasure and pain, success and failure. We were taught to chase one and reject the other. But what if both are necessary halves of the same force? The Hermetic Law of polarity reveals a hidden symmetry. Every extreme contains its opposite, not as an enemy, but as a seed. The world isn't divided. It's dancing. Modern psychology confirms what mystics always knew. The shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. It grows stronger, buried in the subconscious, shaping our behavior in secret. What we repress, we become enslaved by. And yet, what we embrace, we transform. Could it be that your greatest weakness is just a strength turned inside out? You can't have peace without understanding war. You can't reach wholeness by amputating parts of yourself. Duality is the great teacher, not the enemy. And in every heartbreak, every fall, every breakdown, there's a mirror, not to punish, but to reveal. Because the more you resist one pole, the more it controls you. Integration, not avoidance, is where power lives. This law is not about tolerating suffering. It's about transmuting it. The same fire that burns can forge. The same silence that isolates can also heal. The trick is learning to shift along the spectrum, to recognize that joy and sorrow are not separate destinations, but vibrations on the same axis. And once you master the axis, you stop swinging, you center. So many chase only the light, terrified of the dark. But without contrast, how would you know you were awake? How would you recognize grace if not for struggle? The secret is not in choosing sides. It's in realizing the sides were illusions. Because once you understand the rhythm of opposites, you can begin to move reality instead of being moved by it. But what if the battle between good and evil was never a war, but a conversation waiting to be understood? Nothing in the universe stays still. The tides rise and fall, the planets orbit. Your own heartbeat dances between contraction and release. This isn't coincidence, it's law. The Hermetic principle of rhythm reveals a hidden metronome behind existence. Every ascent is followed by descent, every surge by stillness. But what if you could ride these waves instead of being drowned by them? Look closely at your life. Haven't there been seasons of effortless flow, followed by strange resistance? Moments of brilliance, shadowed by sudden doubt? This isn't failure. It's the pendulum in motion. What we call bad luck may just be a downward swing we weren't taught to expect. But once you see the pattern, panic turns to precision. Biology mirrors this law perfectly. Sleep cycles, hormonal rhythms, neural oscillations. Even your emotions fluctuate like tides, sometimes for no visible reason. And this is where most lose themselves, trying to force peak performance in a valley moment. But you can't plant seeds in winter. The wise don't resist the rhythm. They time their magic with it. Ancient civilizations built entire calendars around celestial rhythms. They knew when to act and when to wait. But we, hypnotized by artificial urgency, push through every season as if willpower alone can rewrite the cosmos. It can't. True mastery comes not from domination, but from alignment. Knowing when to move and when to let the current carry you. The rhythm doesn't ask for permission. It will swing, with or without your awareness. But once you recognize its pulse within your own life, you can prepare for the shifts, gather strength in the descent, and soar higher in the rise. Life stops feeling chaotic and starts to feel orchestrated, almost as if you were part of a song too grand to hear all at once. But what if the key to freedom wasn't escaping the swing, but learning when to let go? Every moment is a consequence. Every thought, an initiation. The law of cause and effect isn't about punishment or reward. It's about sequence. The life you're living right now didn't begin yesterday. It began with a thought you repeated, a belief you accepted, a story you told yourself so many times. It became structure. We often look for external culprits, a failed relationship, an unfair job, a cruel childhood. But what if the true source lies deeper, in the invisible chain reaction of cause and effect moving through the subconscious? Neuroscience now confirms it. Your brain filters information based on what it expects to see. And what you expect, you unconsciously create. This law is ruthless in its precision, but also liberating, because if everything has a cause, then everything can be recalibrated. Change the belief, shift the trajectory. Speak a new word, plant a new seed, not with wishful thinking, but with deliberate attention. The smallest adjustment in intention can shift the entire timeline of a life. But here lies the paradox. The most powerful causes are often the most subtle. A passing comment in childhood, a fear we never questioned, a moment of shame so quiet we forgot it, but our nervous system didn't. These are the silent dominoes that fall in the dark, until one day we wake up wondering why our world looks the way it does. If you could trace every effect back to its true origin, what would you find? A memory? A vow? A wound masquerading as wisdom? The Kybalion teaches that the wise rise above effect and become causes themselves, not victims of the world, but architects of it. But such power demands awareness, and awareness demands a willingness to see everything. And if your entire life is a domino chain, what was the first piece you never realized you placed? Forget what you think you know about gender. The Hermetic principle of gender has nothing to do with anatomy and everything to do with creation. It teaches that the masculine and feminine exist within every being, not as identities, but as forces. One initiates, the other receives. One gives direction, the other gives life. Together, they manifest. Look closer at your own inner world. Have you ever felt the urge to act decisively, and another deeper instinct pulling you to reflect, to feel, to receive? Those aren't moods, they're energetic polarities. The masculine within you is focus, clarity, will. The feminine is intuition, magnetism, depth. Neither is superior, but when unbalanced, one can dominate and distort. Every act of creation, from art to thought to reality itself, requires this union. Without feminine receptivity, masculine action becomes forceful and rigid. Without masculine direction, feminine flow becomes chaos. Even the very first movement of the universe, the expansion of energy into form, followed this divine pattern. Could this be why the ancients worshipped both sun and moon? Psychology mirrors this principle, though it uses different terms: the animus and anima, conscious and unconscious, logos and eros. The balance between them determines not just your creativity, but your inner peace. If you suppress either one, you divide yourself, and a divided self can never manifest wholeness in the world outside. So ask yourself, have you nurtured your inner feminine, the part of you that feels, dreams, and receives without shame? Have you honored your inner masculine, the part that protects, leads, and acts with purpose? When these forces are harmonized, you stop creating from confusion and start creating from coherence. But if true creation only arises from inner union, what realities have we been birthing out of imbalance? What if every thought you've ever repeated still exists somewhere? Not as memory, but as energy, alive, moving, feeding. In ancient traditions, these were called thought forms, subtle entities born from sustained mental focus and emotion. Modern psychology might call them schemas or mental constructs, but mystics, they called them living shadows. When you obsess, fear, or fantasize with intensity, you are creating, not metaphorically, energetically. These thought forms don't just float harmlessly, they attach. They linger around you, influencing your emotions, your impulses, even the people you attract. Have you ever wondered why the same patterns return even when your circumstances change? Some thought forms grow stronger over time, becoming what occult traditions call egregores, collective psychic entities formed by group beliefs. Others remain personal, a voice of failure, a loop of guilt, a dream you abandoned but never buried. You may not see them, but they shape your behavior, your confidence, your sense of possibility. Quiet tyrants with familiar names, and yet, if the mind can create something that feeds on repetition, what happens when you begin to feed something new? Could hope, devotion, gratitude, if held long enough, take on form as well? Could you birth a protector where once lived a parasite? If thoughts can become forms, then intention becomes the gatekeeper. This isn't superstition, it's mental hygiene. Because your mind is not a closed system, it's a projector, a womb, a forge. What you dwell on, you energize. What you energize, you eventually meet in your outer world. And if your life feels haunted by the same battles, maybe it's time to ask, what inside me refuses to die? But if your thoughts have grown legs and learned to walk, how many of them are still walking beside you right now? Have you ever seen the same number again and again? Felt a strange pull in a dream that seemed more than just a dream? These aren't coincidences. The universe doesn't speak with words, it speaks in symbols. And if you don't know the language, you'll miss the message, even when it's burning right in front of you. From ancient Egypt to quantum physics, symbols have carried meaning far beyond the literal. Your subconscious thinks in metaphor. It doesn't need logic. It needs resonance. That's why one image can evoke tears, or a single sentence can alter your entire state of being. The language of the universe is emotional, patterned, poetic. It hides what it reveals: synchronicities, animal totems, repeating numbers, even unexpected encounters. All can be messengers, but most people dismiss them. We've been trained to see only what fits a linear narrative, what sounds rational. But what if the deepest truths are non-linear? What if meaning doesn't come to you, but waits for you to notice it? This is where Hermetic wisdom shines. As within, so without. The outer world reflects the inner. So the signs you see aren't random. They're signals, mirrors, echoes of your unconscious mind projected into the field of experience. They are trying to lead you back to something forgotten, something sacred, something you once knew before you were taught to forget. But symbols don't shout, they whisper. And the longer you ignore them, the quieter they become. To decode them, you must become sensitive again. Relearn the language of dreams, of silence, of awe. Because once you do, the world stops being silent. It begins to hum, to pulse, to respond. And if the universe has been speaking to you all along, what truth has it been trying to deliver through the cracks in your logic? What if the world you see isn't the world that is, but the world you've been trained to expect? Science tells us observation collapses possibility into form. But what they don't often say is this: you're not just an observer, you're an activator. Every glance, every belief, every judgment alters the outcome, subtly but undeniably. Your perception is not neutral. It filters, labels, selects. And with each unconscious filter, you construct a prison disguised as reality. A matrix not made of machines, but of assumptions. You believe what you're shown, and then reality shows you only what you believe. It's not manipulation, It's mechanics, but the trap only works as long as you remain unaware. Think about it. Two people walk into the same room, and one sees opportunity, the other threat. Who's right? Both. Because the room isn't objective, it's reactive. It mirrors the frequency you enter with. Consciousness doesn't just observe the universe, it interacts with it, molds it. So what if you stopped watching and started sculpting? The shift from passive observer to conscious architect begins with awareness, not of the world, but of your inner world, the patterns you inherit, the narratives you carry, the expectations that shape what you're even capable of. Noticing. Reality is a feedback loop, and your thoughts are the input. What happens when you change the code? This is where spirituality and quantum science begin to blur. Both suggest that the world out there responds to the world in here. You are not a passenger. You are the scriptwriter, the set designer, the director, and sometimes even the critic, who ruins the show. But what if you reclaimed the pen? And if you stopped accepting reality as it is, how different could it become under your command? Beyond thought, beyond emotion, beyond belief, there lies something even more powerful: will. Not the fleeting kind, but the deep, unshakable force that bends reality with silent command. Hermetic masters didn't manifest by wishing, they manifested by willing. And when will becomes pure, even the universe pauses to listen. Science sees traces of this in focus and neuroplasticity. The more intensely you concentrate, the more your brain rewires. Your nervous system reorganizes itself around what you consistently attend to. But the ancients saw something more. Will as the spark of divinity within, the God seed, that which does not hope, but acts as if already true. The challenge? Most people confuse desire with will. Desire wants, will decides. Desire waits, will moves. Will doesn't need proof. It becomes the proof. It's not loud, it's not emotional. It is the quiet fire that continues even when everything else collapses. The question isn't whether you have will, it's what your will is serving. Every day, you direct this force, whether consciously or not, toward fear, toward doubt, toward unconscious habits. Your will is always active, but rarely aligned, and that's the tragedy. Because once aligned with clarity, vision, and inner truth, it becomes unstoppable, not by crushing obstacles, but by making them irrelevant. In Hermetic teachings, will is the tool that bridges spirit and matter. It takes vision from the mental plane and engraves it onto the material. It's the sword of the mind, not to cut others, but to pierce illusion. And if your will is scattered, fragmented, unsure, then so is your world. But if you ever remembered the full power of your will, what could still dare to stand in your way? You've searched books, studied teachers, followed rituals, hoping to unlock some hidden power. But what if the secret was never out there? What if the truth isn't that you must learn, but that you must remember? The Kybalion doesn't initiate you into something new. It whispers something ancient that your soul already knows. The sages never called you small. That was taught later, by systems that thrived on your forgetting. Hermetic law doesn't treat you as separate from the universe, but as a piece of it becoming aware of itself. The all isn't something you bow to, it's something you awaken as. Your thoughts don't just reflect the divine, they are the divine disguised as thought. Every doubt you carry was planted, every limitation rehearsed. But beneath the roles, wounds, and beliefs, there is something untouched, something infinite, not poetic, not symbolic, real. And the moment you begin to act from that center, you stop navigating life like a lost traveler. You become the force that shapes the path. You were told to pray outward, to seek above. But creation itself begins when you realize you are both the seeker and the source. Your body, the temple. Your mind, the altar. your will, the invocation. You don't need to borrow power. You are the power, fragmented only by the illusion of forgetting. The ancient mystery schools didn't hand out knowledge, they shattered identities. They stripped away the noise until only the divine core remained. The same core that pulses in you now, waiting, not for permission, but for remembrance. The kind that doesn't ask, but knows. So the question lingers, quietly, beneath it all. If you are already divine, then who have you been pretending to be?